Greetings from Temecula, California. It is Tuesday, National Taco Day, and we're so glad you have found the Ryder Report on a busy Tuesday in October. And these October days only get busier when more and more sports come into play. Preseason NBA games, we'll have it covered. Who won the Cavs-Bulls game? Indiana and Minnesota as well. They all played today. Plus, hockey started. That's right. Pittsburgh on the ice. Rangers not starting the season too hot. We have highlights. Plus, they got a banner and rings in Florida. Highlights from that game. And then sprinkle in a little baseball. What a wild game going on as we speak in the Bronx. Yankees were down 6-0. And then, bam, 7-6 as I speak to you. So, crazy. And then tomorrow, WNBA Finals, Game 3. Vegas up 2-0 against Phoenix. So, sprinkle it all in. Pretty soon, we could have one of those great days where all of the major sports are in action. And what would we do then? Well, we would have highlights and we would talk about them because that is what we do. You are listening to the Ryder Report. I am Ryder Bullock. Let's get started. And we'll start with the Chicago Bulls, who edged out the Cleveland Cavaliers 118-117 and a nail-biter that went down to the final possession. Chicago shot efficiently, hitting 51.2% from the floor compared to 46.8% for Cleveland, but it was on the boards where the Bulls truly separated themselves. They out-rebounded the Cavs 51-33, including 15 offensive boards that translated into second chance opportunities. Cleveland, meanwhile, struggled to control the glass, which compounded their shooting woes from the free-throw line. They made just 58.3% from their attempts. The three-point battle was close, with Cleveland slightly more accurate at 36.6 versus Chicago's 32.5. Yet, Chicago's 28 fast break points and 58 points in the paint told the story of a team capitalizing on speed, athleticism, and physicality. Turnovers were an issue for the Bulls, but they coughed it up 25 times. But they converted the Cavaliers' 15 turnovers into 32 points, showing the difference a transition game can make. Defensively, the Cavs generated more steals, 18-9, but could not convert that into a decisive edge. Both teams were active in the paint and on the boards, and they intensely was palatable through 48 minutes, as indicated by the close score, in a game where the largest lead for either team was under 15 points. In the end, it was Chicago's balanced attack inside and out, transition, and half court that allowed them to hold on for the 1-point victory. Cleveland will rue the missed free throws and the second chance opportunities they gave up, while Chicago will savor a hard-fought win that showcased their resilience and depth. It was a contest that demanded your attention, rewarded your loyalty, and reminded us all why on any given night the final buzzer can produce heartbreak or jubilation. Matez Buzelis is our player of the game. 19 points, 7 for 11 on the night, 2 for 5 from 3, 8 rebounds, 1 assist. Pacers, like I said, taking on Minnesota at the Target Center. And how about the Pacers winning in overtime 135-134. Ray J. Dennis, 16 points, 4 for 11 on the day, 4 for 5 from the line. Pacers won it 135 to 134 in overtime. Johnny Juzang had 20 points for Minnesota. And on this preseason night, a night where the Hardwood Report debuted, we go 30 teams in 30 days. And how about the Detroit Pistons, folks? They were one of the biggest surprises in the league last season. We're talking about a team that went 14-68 the year before, dead last, bottom of the barrel. And then they come out in the 24-25 season, triple their win total, go 44-38, and not only make the playoffs, but do it without even touching the play-in tournament. 6 in the East pushed the Knicks to 6 games and win their first playoff game since 2008. That's 16 years. So listen. You got to give them credit. That's a big turnaround, and the story starts with Kane Cunningham. The kid's 23 years old. He took that leap. First All-Star appearance, across-the-board improvement, scoring, assists, rebounds, efficiency. He became the guy they drafted him to be. Now the question is, can he keep climbing, and can they build around him properly? Now let's talk off-season, because Detroit didn't go out and chase stars. They played it smart. They went for fit. They bring in Chris Levert, good secondary ball handler, can get his own shots. Duncan Robinson, elite shooter, fills the void from losing Tim Hardaway Jr. They keep Paul Reed, who gave them big minutes late in the year when Isaiah Stewart got hurt. And look, Reed's not flashy, but you need those guys in the playoffs. Now, here's the big X factor, and I think this is what could swing their season. Jaden Ivey. Don't forget they won 44 games without him for most of the year. He was averaging 17.6 a night, shooting 41% from 3. Then he goes down on New Year's Day, broken fibula, out for the season. You get him back healthy, that's a big deal. That takes pressure off Cade. That gives them a second creator, and it should help bring those turnover numbers down. So what's realistic? Can they climb into that top 4? Maybe. The East is open right now, right? Boston's without Tatum. Indiana's without Halliburton. Both tore their Achilles in the playoffs. Brutal breaks. And that opens the door for somebody like Detroit. Now, you still got to deal with, teams like Orlando. They added Desmond Bane. Atlanta picked up Porzingis. But Detroit's got something those teams don't. And that's continuity. They believe in their core. Cunningham, Ivy, Jalen Duren, Thompson. These kids are growing together. I'm not saying they're a contender yet. Let's not go crazy. They're not beating Milwaukee or a healthy Philly in a 7-game series, but can they get to 48, 49 wins, steal a top 4 seed, and host a playoff series? Absolutely. So the key is stay healthy, cut down on turnovers, and find out if Cade Cunningham is ready to be a superstar, not just an all-star. So that's the difference between being a good story and being a threat. So keep an eye on Detroit. They're not the laughingstock of the East anymore. They are here to play. So if you're a Detroit fan, there's a couple of dates you should mark on your calendar, and it's going to be that big game on opening night, October 22nd, so the day after opening night, against the Bulls. So the Bulls in preseason just beat the Cavaliers. Okay, and I know it's preseason, and you don't want to get too wrapped into all that, but Bulls doing some stuff. And again, with the Pacers and Boston kind of sitting sidelined, teams like Detroit and Chicago, are gonna step up their game. So I think October 22nd against the Bulls, that'll be a tough one there. And then that home opener, October 26th, against the Celtics. They do travel to Mexico City November 1st against the Mavericks. And then they're in the Emeritus NBA Cup East Group B, November 7th at the Nets, November 14th against the Sixers, November 26th at the Celtics, November 28th against the Magic, Martin Luther King Jr. Day, January 19th, against the Celtics. So big games for Detroit, who is coming to play. Let's shift out west and talk about the Golden State Warriors, because listen, this team showed you last year they're not done yet. You go back to early February, they're sitting at 25-25, middle of the pack, ninth in the West. Everybody's ready to close the book. People saying the dynasty's dead, Steph's getting old, Draymond's a headache, Klay's gone, it's over. Then they go out, they make the move. They bring in Jimmy Butler. And as Steve Kerr said, Jimmy changed our season. And you know what? He did. They go 22-5 with Curry and Butler together. Finish the year 48-34. Win the play-in, knock off Houston in a grueling 7-game series, and push into the second round before Steph goes down hamstring strain and Minnesota takes him out in 5. But make no mistake, that run told you the championship window is cracked open. Not wide open, but it's still there. Now let's talk about what they did this offseason. They had to go and get Jonathan Kuminga back. That deal gets done 2 years late, September. That was priority number 1. Or 2 years late, September. That was priority number 1. You lock him in. You keep the athleticism and youth around the court. They also bring in Al Horford. Listen, he's 38, but the guy still knows how to play. Veteran, big, smart defense. Classic Warriors, right? He passes. So this is a classic Warrior move. They add Seth Curry for shooting. They keep Gary Payton II. They keep Melton. And now they got a defensive core that finished 7th in the league last year in efficiency. That's no small thing. So this team's going to guard. But the real question is always, do they have enough offense when Steph Curry sits? Because that's the issue. You look at the numbers, their offensive rating was 13 points higher with him on the floor. That's not sustainable. That's dependency. They've got to find ways to survive, and when he's not there, that's how they gotta survive when he's not there. And this is where the X factor comes in. Brandon Padinsky. Okay? The kid is the real deal. He's not flashy, but he's smart, tough, and he does everything. Draws charges, rebounds like a forward, makes plays, and most importantly, he found his shot. After December, he shot 41% from 3, gave them double-digit scoring, and in the playoffs, he had 26, then 28 in back-to-back games. That's big time. If Pods takes another step and becomes that reliable third scorer alongside Curry and Butler, that's a different ball club. That's the bridge between old and new. But let's be honest, time is not their friend. Steph's 37, Jimmy's 36, Draymond's 35. You can't plan for the future. You've got to go now. They've got a top-tier defense. They've got championship experience. And if Steph stays healthy, they'll be dangerous. But if he's missing time or his legs start to go, it's going to be tough to keep up in a West that's loaded with Oklahoma City, Denver, Minnesota, even Houston's coming, right? Those teams didn't go anywhere. They're still there. They're still lurking. So, yeah, the Warriors are still in the mix. They're not the juggernaut anymore, but if they stay healthy, if Pod steps up, and if Butler gives you what he gave you last spring, you can't count them out. They've got one more run left, maybe, but this is it. It's now or never for Golden State. And if you're a Golden State fan, some days that you're going to want to mark on your calendar, and it's going to be that opening night matchup because they're going to come out swinging opening night, October 21st, Tuesday, at the Lakers. And then home opener, the 23rd, against the Nuggets. So two big games in prime time on national television that set the stage up for the Warriors season. Then the Emeritus NBA Cup West Group C play, November 7th at the Nuggets, November 14th at the Spurs, November 21st, Trailblazers, November 26th, the Rockets. Christmas Day, you play the Mavs. Rivalry Week, January 22nd at the Mavs, and then January 24th at the Timberwolves. So Christmas Day, you're playing up against your old teammate, Clay, and then you got to play him again on the 22nd, and then the 24th, that matchup against Minnesota. And, that's going to be a fun one as well. That could almost be a playoff series if all things go well down the stretch. So we shall see. But that is 30 teams in 30 days. And I want to remind you, the Hardwood Report will air this Thursday from the Front Wave Arena in Oceanside, California, ahead of the Clippers and the Longzhou Lions of China. It'll be a fun matchup. And then the Hardwood Report on before the game, and then after the game, the Ryder Report. That's enough for basketball. Let's switch gears to the rink. NHL opening night. The Florida Panthers kicked off their Stanley Cup title defense in style Tuesday night, edging the Chicago Blackhawks 3-2 in a thrilling matchup. Chicago struck first as Frank Nazar scored on a breakaway mid through the first period, but the Panthers responded quickly, out-shooting the Blackhawks 17-3 early, with A.J. Greer and Carter Verhaeghe netting goals just 3 minutes apart to take a 2-1 lead into the first intermission. Teuvo Teravainen tied it for Chicago early in the second, keeping the game even at 2. Then midway through the third, Mackie Samskovich set up Jasper Voquest, who knocked the puck out of the air for the go-ahead goal with 10:20 left. Florida held on for the win, with Sergei Bravotsky stopping 17 shots, while former Panthers Spencer Knight made 34 saves for Chicago. Panthers coach Paul Maurice praised his team's resilience, especially without stars Alexander Barkov and Matthew Takachuk. New Blackhawks coach Jeff Blashill, in his official debut, said it's all about enjoying the game. Up next, Chicago visits Boston on Thursday, while Florida hosts Philadelphia. Opening night at Madison Square Garden in a brand new era for both the Penguins and the Rangers. Dan Muse behind the bench for Pittsburgh for the first time, and across the ice, his predecessor, Mike Sullivan, making his debut with the Rangers. And the Penguins veteran setting the tone early. Evgeny Malkin wins the draw. Justin Brazeau, new to the team, roofs the backhand past Igor Sestorgin. 1-0 Pittsburgh late in the first. Arthur Silvovis, also a Penguin for the first time, steady all night, turns away Alexis Lafreniere on the power play, part of a 25-save shutout in his debut. Rangers pushed late with the net empty, but Brazeau ices it with his second of the night. And Blake Lizotte adds another just 20 seconds later. Penguins cruise 3-0 on opening night. And some history. Malkin, Crosby, and Letling become the first trio in major North American pro sports to play 20 seasons together with the same team. A shout-out win for Silvas, a statement for Brazeau, and a winning debut for Dan Muse. Penguins start 1-0. Pittsburgh heads home to face the Islanders Thursday. Rangers visit Buffalo. To the rink, from the rink to the diamond. Seattle comes away with a big 8-4 win over Detroit tonight. The Mariners' offense was firing on all cylinders, and it all started in the third inning. Crawford got things rolling with a single to left, scoring Robles on a throwing error. Then O'Rourke followed with a single to center, putting Seattle up 2-0. The Mariners didn't stop there. Cerez crushed a 422-foot homer to left center in the fourth, and Raleigh added an RBI single, giving Seattle a commanding 4-0 lead. Detroit tried to respond in the fifth with Carpenter's ground-out scoring Dingler, but Seattle kept the pressure on. Crawford went deep in the sixth, his homer stretching the lead to 5-1. In the eighth, a sacrifice fly from Crawford added another run, and the Mariners put the game away in the ninth. Raleigh launched a 2-run homer. Ozorna scored, and Detroit managed a late rally with a couple of RBI hits, but Seattle sealed it 8-4. Win goes to Gilbert, improving to 1-0, while Flaherty takes the loss. Seattle's bats were simply too much tonight, and they now lead the series 2-1 and can end the series tomorrow. Yankees taking on the Blue Jays. That game just finishing, and the score... Oh, it's not over yet. I apologize. Bottom of the eighth. 2 outs. Cabello for the Yankees at bat. Man on first and second. Yankees lead it 9-6. Bottom of the eighth. Yankees lead it 9-6. Nance is pitching for the Blue Jays. Cabello is at bat for the Yankees. We will keep you updated as that game comes to an end. Let's now shift from highlights to news of the day. Joe Flacco. Yes, that Joe Flacco is on the move again. The Cincinnati Bengals, 2-3 on the year. They go out and trade for the 40-year-old veteran from Cleveland. They get Flacco and a sixth in the 2026 for a fifth rounder next year. Now listen, you don't bring in a guy like Joe Flacco unless you got a problem. And the Bengals do have a problem. Jake Browning's not getting it done. Burrow's out. Toe injury, week 2. And since then, this offense has been flat, to say the least. 6 touchdowns, 8 picks. That's not winning football. Zach Taylor says, quote, Joe's a leader, Joe's a winner, Joe's got the arm. That's fine, but let's be honest here. Flacco's been on half the league in the last 5 years. Broncos, Jets, Browns, Colts, back to the Browns, and now back to Cincinnati. He's thrown more passes, new teammates. He's thrown more passes to new teammates than some of these guys have had hot meals. Now, I'll give you props. He's got pedigree, Super Bowl MVP, big playoff moments, and he's still got the arm talent. But is he the answer at 40 years old for a team that's already fighting to stay afloat in the AFC North? I'm not buying it. This is a team that should be contending. Burrow's hurt. Chase looks frustrated. Mixon's not running wild. And now they're reaching for Flacco. It's desperation, plain and simple. You want to talk about wild? If he starts this week against Green Bay, he becomes only the 7th quarterback since 1950 to face the same team twice in a season with 2 different clubs. That's not history you want. That's trivia night material. Final Jeopardy. Write that down. I might win you some money there. But meanwhile, in Cleveland, rookie Dylan Gabriel played fine in London. Shadur Sanders moves up to QB2. And Dion, he's out there saying he doesn't care about the Browns. Says, I care about Colorado, not the rest of that mess. All right, Coach Prime. your kid's in that mess. Okay. He's now one snap away from playing in the NFL. So like it or not, you care a little bit. But Deion's got other things to worry about. He had leg surgery and all of that stuff. So the Browns making a trade, it probably, came across his feed. He knew what that meant, maybe, and that. But it wasn't, it wasn't overwhelming on his mind. So he says. But anyway, the whole thing tells me two things. One, Cincinnati's not sold on Browning. They've seen enough. And number two, Flacco's name still carries just enough weight in the league to get a phone call when teams are desperate. But if you're asking me, can Flacco steady the ship? Maybe for a week or two. Long term, no. This is a patch. Okay, it's duct tape. And in that division with Baltimore, losing its way, and Cleveland's defense still nasty. Pittsburgh's hanging around. We'll see if it's the old, gunslinger, and if he's got one more bullet left. But don't be fooled if that patch job doesn't hold, because it's not 2012 anymore. All right, so that's the deal with Joe Flacco. One more stop, one more jersey, maybe one more chance to prove he's got something left in the tank. We'll see how that plays out Sunday in Cincinnati. Now to a bizarre NFL story that's quite frankly sad. And I'm talking about Mark Sanchez, former Jets quarterback, now Fox Sports commentator. He's being sued after what prosecutors say was a fight that he started over a parking spot in downtown Indianapolis. Let me repeat that. A parking spot. 69-year-old truck driver, who we now know as Perry Toll, is suing Sanchez and Fox Corporation, saying Sanchez instigated a fight that left him severely injured. We're talking permanent disfigurement, loss of function, emotional distress, the whole thing. And I've seen some pictures, and maybe you have too, of Mr. Toll, and he looks like he's seen better days. Okay, here's where it gets worse. Police say Toll stabbed Sanchez several times in the altercation. There's photos out there. Toll in a neck brace, covered in blood, big gash on the side of his face. Sanchez ends up hospitalized too. Okay. Now look, according to the affidavit, Sanchez smelled of alcohol. He was drunk, didn't know where he was. Okay. And he goes after the guy, allegedly enters the truck, blocks him in, shoves him. The truck driver sprays him with pepper spray. Sanchez keeps coming, and then it escalates. Knife comes out, stabbings happen. It's a complete mess. And all of this, all of it, because a dispute over where somebody parked. That's what the prosecutor said. We are literally talking about people fighting over a parking space. You can't make it up. Sanchez, Jets quarterback, probably one of the best Jets quarterbacks this century, is now facing felony battery charges and multiple misdemeanors. Fox Sports isn't commenting. His attorneys aren't commenting. and this lawsuit's asking for damages, fees, the whole deal. He was there in Indy for Fox's coverage of the Colts Raiders on Sunday. You think about that. You're in town to call a game on company time, company money, and you end up in a brawl facing felony charges, getting sued, and someone walks away permanently disfigured. Listen, I watched Mark Sanchez's whole career. I watched the Jets for years, and I remember, when he went back-to-back in AFC title games and beat my Colts in the playoffs, and he was never a star, but he handled the New York media well, seemed like a good guy, had a nice TV career going, but this is a disaster. And if half of what is alleged here is true, it's hard to see how Fox keeps him on the air. Brady Quinn did the job Sunday with Chris Myers, Colts Raiders. And you got to believe that if this is true, Quinn or somebody else is going to be filling in long term. Because you can't be involved in something like this and then be on the national television calling games 2, 3, 4 days later. It just don't happen. So we'll let the courts handle it. But man, what a fall from grace. A guy who once had the city buzzing in Manhattan, now possibly out of a job, facing serious charges and all over a parking spot. It is absolutely wild, crazy, and hard to believe, really. Here's what's trending in the world of sports. The Yankees survive. Toronto 9-6 is the final. Toronto leads the series 2-1. Game 4 is scheduled for tomorrow. 7:08 pitch in Yankees Stadium. Odell Beckham Jr. has accepted a 6-game suspension for violating the NFL's performance-enhancing drug policy, delaying his planned return to the league. Beckham revealed the suspension on the Pivot podcast, explaining that he failed a PED test last season while with the Miami Dolphins. He denied knowingly taking banned substances, saying the NFL told him his testosterone levels were too high. The suspension, now official on the NFL's transaction wire, will keep him sidelined until Week 12. Beckham, who turns 33 before the ban ends, remains intent on returning this season and named 4 potential teams of interest: the Pittsburgh Steelers, Kansas City Chiefs, Los Angeles Rams, and the New York Giants. Beckham's stint with the Dolphins ended last December after 9 games, during which he recorded just 9 receptions for 55 yards. The Baltimore Ravens have traded pass rusher Odafe Oweh and a 2027 7th-round pick to the Los Angeles Chargers in exchange for safety Aloni Gilman and a 2026 5th-round pick. The teams announced Tuesday. Oweh, 26, has struggled this season after posting a career-high 10 sacks in 2024 through 5 games. He has recorded no sacks and seen his playing time fall to a career-low 45% of defensive snaps. The move frees up around $8 million in cap space for Baltimore, who may now look to reinforce their pass rush. The trade comes as the Ravens' defense continues to falter, ranking last in points allowed, 35.4 per game, and 31st in pass defense, 262.4 yards per game. Baltimore also signed veteran safety C.J. Gardner-Johnson to its practice squad, addressing depth issues exposed when Pro Bowler Kyle Hamilton missed a time with a groin injury. Gilman, 28, was a key piece of the Chargers' top-ranked defense last season, excelling as a deep safety. His arrival gives Baltimore flexibility to move Hamilton closer to the line of scrimmage. For the Chargers, Oweh adds a young, high-upside edge rusher with 11% pressure rate, second best among their current pass rushers, and could fill in while Kelly Mack recovers from an elbow injury. The Ravens, now 1-4, have matched the worst start in franchise history. Louisiana State Police released video and records today tied to a December 2024 fatal crash allegedly caused by former LSU football player Kyron Lacey. Following a renewed scrutiny over the investigation, authorities reaffirmed that while Lacey's green Dodge Charger did not collide with any vehicles, his reckless driving in oncoming traffic triggered the chain reaction that killed 78-year-old Herman Hall in Chack Bay, Louisiana. Lacey, 24, was under investigation for felony negligent homicide, hit and run, and reckless driving before he died by apparent suicide in April of 2025. During a police pursuit in Houston, the Lafourche Paris District Attorney had planned to present the case to a grand jury on April 14th. Police said Lacey was traveling at a high rate of speed, passing 4 vehicles in a no-passing zone before returning to his lane, causing other drivers to swerve and collide. Witnesses told police, quote, "A green Charger caused all this." Surveillance footage tracked Lacey's uninterrupted path for 11 miles after the crash. Lacey's attorney, Matthew Orr, has challenged the state's findings, arguing that Lacey had returned to his lane 92 yards before the crash and that another driver's tailgating caused the collision. Orr also accused officers of coercing witnesses and claimed key citations were later altered. State police stood by their conclusion, urging the public to rely on the full body of evidence. Louisiana Attorney General Liz Murrell said her office may conduct an independent review, but emphasized that the evidence shows Lacey's actions set the fatal evidence in motion, which under the state law can still constitute vehicular homicide even without direct contact. Here is tonight's final thought. When the United States takes the floor this March in Puerto Rico, it won't be to punch a ticket they've already earned. The Americans are already bound for next year's FIBA Women's World Cup in Germany, but this qualifying tournament, spanning from March 11th to the 17th, will serve as something more nuanced, more layered than a mere formality. It's a crucible of preparation, a proving ground, and perhaps a glimpse into the next great chapter of USA basketball. Their path will be a steady climb. Senegal on March 11th, Puerto Rico a day later, Italy on the 14th, New Zealand on the 15th, and finally a closing act against Spain on March 17th. A meeting of two global powers who've so often collided in these international theaters. What makes this particular qualifier so compelling isn't the stakes on the scoreboard, but the stories beneath it. Chief among them, Caitlin Clark, the Indiana Fever phenom, the nation's most electrifying scorer, and a transcendent figure who has already reshaped women's basketball at home, now turns her eyes toward the red, white, and blue. After a season that tested her body and spirit, groin and ankle injuries sidelining her since mid-July, Clark has called USA basketball her, quote, top priority this offseason. It's a telling phrase. In an era where star players balance brands, leagues, and rest, Clark's commitment to the national program reminds us of a lineage of Cherasi, Bird, Leslie, and more. Players whose USA wore across their chest not as an obligation, but as an honor. Still, this journey will unfold without head coach Kara Lawson, the newly minted leader for the 2028 Olympic Games in Los Angeles. The Duke coach will be deep in the rhythms of March Madness, unable to guide the team through this particular chapter. Her absence, while understandable, leaves the Americans navigating with a different hand at the helm. A challenge, yes, but also an opportunity to test their chemistry, resilience, and adaptability. Around the world, the stage will be equally intense. Istanbul, Wuhan, Lyon, and cities where dreams will be made and others dashed. With Belgium, Australia, Nigeria, and host Germany already secure, every remaining team knows what's at stake. Finish near the top or miss the chance to compete on the sport's grandest global stage. But for the U.S., the mission is both simpler and deeper. This is about refining an identity, forging cohesion, and finding out who belongs in the constellation of stars that will represent America in Germany next year and at home in Los Angeles 3 years after that. And perhaps it's fitting that this next step takes place in Puerto Rico, a proud basketball nation, a land where passion spills from every gym and every street court. The setting is symbolic, a bridge between North and South, past and future, experience and youth. So while the standings may not matter much for the Americans, the moment will. The first step back for Caitlin Clark, the first glimpse of what's next for USA Basketball, the first hints of how a dynasty renews itself. Because for the U.S. women, every game is more than a tune-up. It's a statement, and the world will be watching. That'll do it for me on this Tuesday night. Till next time, Ryder Bullock reporting. Thank you for your time, and thank you for letting me share mine.